I remember seeing that video where Piglet got completely outskilled as he's just dancing around the Rise, and Rise was mashing buttons and furiously, and it's just like, I win. So yeah, we're not going to be seeing Rise today. Hecarim will be banned out, talking about status from the second best of 3 before. That will be taken away here from Wonderwear, and Morgana will be the next ban from Team Dignitas.
Will indeed. We've actually seen a surprisingly high win rate. I say surprisingly. Morgana's had a very high win rate just because of how good she is in the defensive capabilities as a support. And I know Mountain does play a fair amount of Morgana as well.
Yeah, he does. And Kalista will be the final ban from Mouse, aimed at Cobby in the bottom lane with Nisbet. And then Irelia will be the final ban from Team Dignitas EU, aimed at Bintu. And you even mentioned that yourself. Big Irelia player. Big
Irelia player, but right now both junglers are open with Gragas and Rek'Sai. Looking at AD carry role, Sivir is available. Her stock kind of goes up quite a lot now that Kalista is away from the table. Sivir, Urgot, Kalista is kind of the trio of the 3. So I wonder whether MOUs are going to look to prioritize that if they don't go for a jungler first. But certainly a lot of options available, and it will be the Rek'Sai they lock in. And that's interesting for me, actually, because you're giving away now Gragas over to the other side, which is kind of a shoo-in for Dignitas Europe to lock in anyway. I actually feel like it's really difficult to draft against the Team Dignitas lineup because they have so many power picks and they're saving so many of them for the last 2 picks for themselves, especially that counter pick likely on mid.
Yeah, I mean, they want the counter pick on mid lane. They have Senkux in their team. He's a big carry player for them, and they'll be using that one for sure. Alistar will be locked in with Gragas for Team Dignitas EU here as their first 2 picks, and Alistar's been seeing so much play now in the support role.
Has, and like Morgana, and just so strong from the support as well. I think he was undefeated in the first week, or at least picked in 100% of games and only lost 1 of LCS. And with that Gragas, that's a very strong front line already set up from the Team Dignitas lineup. Dan, we don't normally talk about hovers, but one thing Dan used to be famous for was his teleport Rammus. That is something that he has previously done out of the jungle. So that's the last time I'm going to say it, Dan, until you lock it in. No more talking about your Rammus. But honestly, this is where MOUs' changes need to kind of show themselves, is are they able to do anything different? And I feel like Nara is a bit of a different pick for MOUs. We didn't see it out of them all that much in the spring split.
Yeah, definitely something a little bit different. Bintu will actually be taking that one to the Rift here. Sivir will be the next lock-in. You talked about Kalista being off the table, so Sivir's value goes up. Urgot is the other AD carry who will be sitting in bot lane, but there's a bunch to choose honestly, if you want to pick into that Sivir. But MOUs already setting themselves up to start running at people. And
it's one thing we actually saw a lot in the qualifiers out of MOUs is this Gnar play. I think Bintu, he actually had a KDA of 13.5 on Gnar in the games that they played. So clearly very impressive. We know he's very good in 1v1 situations. I wonder whether that's going to lead him to that Black Cleaver style that we've started to see a lot more on Gnar.
Yeah, definitely very good at those one-on-ones, and as Team Dignitas EU have just locked in Maokai and Lucian, probably will be looking for that one-on-one as well. So we could see that build coming out, and Maokai will be sat in that top lane. Very interesting.
Unsurprisingly, it's the mid laners that have fallen all the way down through the picks and ban phase. Now is going to be the test. Is Echo going to be a big pick here for either team? I don't feel like you can first pick Echo into the mid lane. There are still a couple of tricky matchups that he does have, and there are so many mid laners available right now. You look at it, it's only really the LeBlanc and Morgana, as we've seen it into LeBlanc, that are banned away. Still, you've got the likes of Cassiopeia, Victor, Azir still available here for pick. So I don't expect MOUs to pick that straight away now.
Yeah, it's also interesting because in this whole series, Team Dignitas EU will always have the mid counter in every single game because they're always red side. So that almost means that MOUs cannot ever pick Echo even if they wanted to, and now Victor comes out instead. Yeah,
not only is this a good pickup, but it takes it away from Senkux. Senkux played so much Victor before Victor was disabled that the running joke was that Senkux was a bit of a Victor one trick, and he kind of perpetuated it himself. But then it got too far, and everyone was like, man, that guy can only play Victor. And no, Senkux has a lot in his playbook, and Are we gonna see Echo? Now, Echo into Victor, I actually would not like that lane. No, because Echo is melee range champion. He just puts gravity field down, and sure, you can put your W down, but that's got a cast time longer than gravity field on it. So I don't like this lane. What else is available? The Cassiopeia, the Azir is available. I know that Senkux in the last couple of weeks of Challenger was a big Azir player. So
I mean, it's funny as you were talking about with how he's kind of people thought he was a one-trick, but he had like 6 or 7 different play champions in the last split. Played so many different things, and now he's going to be bringing out the Azir as well. So yeah, it's going to be that in the mid lane once again, and this is just another comfort champion for Senkux. Not maybe the counter pick he wanted, but a lane where he's not going to be dissatisfied with.
Yeah, I would agree. Although there's a lot more early game damage on Mouse or I say early, kind of early mid game, once you get Sivir roaming a little bit, you've got Na, who's going to have some damage. You've got Rek'Sai, Sivir, Victor are the 2 key ones there, as they have a fair amount of earlier game. On the other side of Team Dignitas, they've got a heavy front line with 3 tanks, then good scaling damage with Azir, and Lucian should be able to kind of keep them afloat up until the point that Azir really gets rolling.
Yeah, that definitely seems to be the case as we head into this one. The very first game of today, potential 6 games, as we have 2 best-of-3s between these 2 teams. But as we get onto the Rift, make sure you get your tweets in at LOL Esports using the hashtags MOUwin and DEUwin to vote for who you think will take home the win. It's been a while since those words have come out of my mouth.
That is scary. I was going to say the same thing. I legitimately was about to say, it's been a while, Pulse. Don't worry about it.
Sometimes we get in each other's heads and it gets very weird.
It's not good.
No, it's not.
It's not good. Just don't give me pet names, because QuickShot started with that.
Oh, yeah? I went in quiet. Either way, we're going to get into this one here, Stress. Mouse versus Team Dignitas EU for this first game of this best-of-3 today here in the Summer Split Qualifier. And everyone is shooting out of base. So we're going to be seeing that Alistair again. Seeing a lot of play all across the regions. Just a pretty solid support right now. As well as being pretty solid himself. Very difficult to take down once he's got that unbreakable will.
Yeah, very, very much so. And that's honestly one of the key factors of why he's been such a big pick, is just how difficult he is to kill, as well as the crowd control. I mean, I think we all saw some of the plays in the last week of LCS where I think it was actually Gosu Pepper just having a beast Alistair game where he was headbutt taxi minioning the way into a pulverize. But one thing is for certain is Senkux is going to be a player to watch on Azir here. The last time we saw it, it went 5-5 and 14 in the spring split in a single game. So I know he's been working on it. Well, even more.
He's had a lot of those games where he's gone pretty huge on those champions in the mid lane. Even in the games he lost, he always had an amazing scoreline. Pretty impressive. We'll see if he can do that and potentially take a victory here. This is a very different lineup to what we saw in spring. Dan and Beansu going into this jungle, disrupting that level 1 play from Maokai. Gets the ward over the wall as well. So it'll be interesting to see if Wonderwear now sets up on Raptor, on the Merc walls instead, and tries to get that level 2 from there as well. It will mean he'll have to go back to base, but he'll be doing that anyway. So this might still be okay for the setup.
Yeah, he'll get a little bit more financially from it though, so he should be okay, as he will head back, I imagine. I'm looking for exactly what these level 1 stats are going to be. It looks like everything's pretty passive right now, and honestly, I think the effect is really going to be felt from Dan when he starts getting into lanes about that 3.5 minute mark. That's where Dan has always been known as a player, is the early game junglers. He's constantly been playing champions like Lee Sin that can get into lanes early, get themselves ahead. But he has Rek'Sai here against Gragas. It can be a little tricky, but certainly still has the ability to do so should he find the opening.
Well, here's the bot lane, Cedrian and Mountain, a duo who have stayed together for such a long time. I actually don't remember a time when these two weren't together in some capacity. And they'll be playing against Nisbet and Cobby down in the bot lane here. Dan, you can see him going for his jungle, looking for the second buff. We'll be hitting level 3 around the same time as Obvious. And we'll be around the same area. I say same area on the map, but it's going to be Obvious going to the bot side, so they'll be on the opposite sides of the map.
You can see that Senkux, though, knows he has to watch out for Dan early. Senkux, whenever he's playing, is basically just a giant target in this middle lane. He likes to push a lot, but at the same time it costs him lane presence. You can see he's already shoved up a little bit here because Sayu obviously can't clear the wave just fast enough, as fast as Senkux can start to push it in. But there's a fair amount of trading going on in all of the lanes so far, but Dan hasn't yet gone aggressive. He's actually looking to maybe counter jungle here, or even just get in behind Senkux. This is the play we were talking about, is Senkux shoved up, hasn't warded the top.
Well, even a flash here would be pretty sweet to get away from Senkux, and they do get it. Obvious now comes in for the counter gank, just in case they go a little too far into the tower range. And takes a fair beating as he retreats. Bot lane though, there's a headbutt pulverized combo. Kobe flashes forwards, and the shield as well. Might be first blood here. Kobe looking for the last auto, and will get it, even past the heal. And Mountain just returns with some auto attacks, but what a play from Nisbet.
Yeah, Summoners traded all across, but it's Team Dignitas Europe that come up with the first kill of the game. Kobe popped his own heal to make sure he got into range, but this is just how strong Alistair can be. If you're a player that has a lot of lane presence and you can constantly get those engages, you can easily start taking down the enemy AD carry if they're not protected. One thing that it does cost Nisbet, as you can see, is he's actually very low on mana because he's comboed 2 or 3 times in lane, but the fact that he gets a kill from it makes it entirely worth it.
Yeah, and just at the very end there, you saw Mountain trying to freeze the wave just so Cedric can get everything he could when he went back into the lane, and Nisbet, with the last little bit of mana, was able to disrupt the freeze. So even better, Nisbet doing everything right in the bot lane. Meanwhile, in the top lane, Wonderwear and Beansu did go for that level 2, but it doesn't mean that Maokai's going to get any more kill pressure. Does mean that now we'll find it a little harder just to shove the Maokai out early, and Maokai will just continue to sustain for the rest of eternity. So
the result of that first blood lines itself up with a pickaxe in the inventory of Kobe, and the Lucian into Sivir matchup is a bit of a finicky one, because you essentially are trying to hit Piercing Light by connecting it through a minion, but if Sivir can spell shield the damage, if she's not under pressure of Alistair, you tend to be okay, or you can just avoid it if you can walk away. But now that the pickaxe is there, there's a lot of trading that Kobe is going to be able to do against Cedrion in lane. You can see he even went back to pick up a longsword because they basically reset the wave, the wave in the bot lane. So it'll be interesting to see how these bottom lane trades are actually going to go.
Well, it feels like reset should be the past tense, but Nisbet and Mountain was able to get the ward down. Nisbet was trying to disrupt that, didn't quite get that. But in mid lane, first back comes through from Senkux, did pick up the Phoenix Codex. Nice. That means that the gank won't be coming through anytime soon. We'll continue the aggression this time, though. Does not face the plant. The wall will be Dan in the top lane. Just get the knock up onto Wonderwear. Followed on the wallop from Beansu. But just doesn't have the damage or the health, really, to dive that turret. So Wonderwear will be okay to go back. This doesn't sync up with his teleport, though, so he will have to walk back into lane.
But apart from that, Team Dignitas, from that kill, have a slight lead, but everything else seems to be somewhat even. A bit of a CS lead for Victor in the middle lane, but that's somewhat to be expected this early on. Azir, in his very early laning phase, can get the presence over Victor, but you can see now that Sayu's got a couple of levels into his E, he's able to start really pushing things back in his favor. He's also got that Hex Core, I believe it's Mark II. Has upgraded that to make sure he can get that extra explosion on his E.
Should be indeed. A little bit more damage. Senkux is pretty much even up everything right now, and did help up with the Raptors as well. I'm not sure if he was trying to get the CS, but sometimes you can do it at level 1 if you're looking for the extra little bit of experience, but wasn't the case right here, and we'll just kind of keep farming out. It's pretty much been the name of the game for all of these lanes apart from bot lane, who have also gone into that rut themselves. Obvious and Wonderwear securing the crab here, and getting some deep saplings just for the vision. But overall, this has been a pretty slow game from both of the teams. Have not really looked for any aggression apart from the small mistake by the duo in the bot lane from Mouse.
Yeah, and the thing from now on for Team Dignitas is they don't really need to force too many of their lanes. They have a lead in the bottom lane. Senkux is kind of happy here, but he is going to go in.
Oh, the slide and glide in from Senkux, and the knockback as well from Obvious. Absolutely perfect with the explosive cask. And just like that, that's a dead Victor.
What a great combo out from the Team Dignitas mid and jungle. You can see the synergy now that Obvious has brought into this lineup along with Senkox, but bottom lane engage.
Again, the combo from Nisbet looks for the dash in. Sejun will be trying to get the Lantern back to safety, but it isn't safety though. There's the culling coming across onto Mountain. He will be putting down the hurt onto Nisbet as he tries to retreat, but again, Sejun is just getting punted around quite literally by this bot lane from Team Dignitas.
Team Dignitas right now are starting to style a little bit over Mouse. That mid lane play was so flashy. That is an EUCS big play right here if I've ever seen one. But I mean, that's the kind of play that as a Victor is so difficult to do anything about. As soon as you get hit by the Shurima shuffle, it's kind of curtains for you, and then suddenly Gragas comes in and ults you backwards. But it's exactly what they needed to do. They had an opening. They knew Dan was kind of away on the other side of the map, so they really just Mouse couldn't do anything about that play.
Yeah, pretty much. Not too much to add on to that on Stress, but Obvious now in this blue buff will be taking it up and allowing Senkox to grab it. But in terms of scaling for Team Dignitas, they do have these two beefy tanks. Of course, Senkox will just get bigger and bigger and bigger. Copy will just kind of continue to be strong throughout the game, but their lane is also ahead. If you just look at the scaling overall, how do you think this is going to work out, not only in mid-game, but late game if we reach it?
I mean, Team Dignitas are going to have the benefit late game of having Azir. We've seen that even when an Azir's team can get behind, they actually can output so much damage. I mean, you look at some of the last week's LCS games. I remember, I think it's Soren from Copenhagen Wolves was just outputting so much damage on Azir in the last 2 weeks, even though the team was starting to fall behind. It's just very difficult to actually shut an Azir down. And that is a problem that Mouse are going to have here, but the problem they have that is more glaring is they're behind as it is. So this Azir is going to keep getting better and better, with Mouse just starting to fall off a little bit.
What we haven't seen yet is big fights, larger scale fights as well. Dragon has not gone down to either of the teams, and the crab has been set up from Dan, so Mouse does have slight control over the area if they do try and push that objective in the next couple of minutes. Meanwhile, Senkox again, am I watching a replay? Because Victor again just bites the dust. Obvious just comes in for the last hit, and another kill goes over to Team Dignitas.
Senkox makes it look so easy. So easy. I mean, I knew he'd been working on his Azir for the last, like, 3 months. Ever since we finished Spring Split. Every time I'm on the clan, I'm like, oh, Senkox, playing Azir, playing Azir.
Yep.
Man, it was good in spring, and this is looking really strong. This is fluid, and it's kind of a bit of a shame that Obvious has picked up both kills from it, because Senkox is getting no real escalation from it, but he has now got his Morellonomicon finished. And, I mean, it's going to make Sayu's job so much more difficult. Sayu basically has to Ghost Flash himself into a back of a fight and try and Chaos Storm Senkox before Senkox can move away, but that is never going to happen against an Azir with an Azir ult, so it means Sayu has to sit back and hardly deal any damage, because he's never going to get in range to ult any squishy carry down.
Yeah, we'll have fun chunking through Maokai and Gragas as Victor.
Exactly.
Sayu, yeah, in the mid lane has been forced to go for the Sorcerer's Boots as well, just to try and get out of danger a little faster, so he is a long way off hitting a big power spike, or even a first big item. Meanwhile, the Morellonomicon has been completed by Senkox, and he is just drifting further and further ahead in this mid lane. Meanwhile, in the bot lane, the BF swords have been picked up by both sides, but Cobby again leads with the damage advantage, plus the CS advantage, and the kill. And just everything is just going over to Team Dignitas ever so slightly, just getting ahead.
Dan knows he has to be here mid lane now, because they're roughly timing the ultimates, the combo between Azir and Gragas, and they're both available again. You have to respect that, because otherwise this play is going to happen again and again. We've already seen it twice, and Mouse didn't account for it. If it happens again, it's, you know, that fool me once, shame on you kind of saying that, you know, if Mouse get fooled a third time, it's almost inexcusable.
And it's going to start getting to the point where Obvious is so tanky he can just start diving. Meanwhile, top lane, Beansu putting damage onto Wonderwear. It's going to take a little while for him to chunk through the Maokai and take him out completely, but does do enough to shove him back to turret. as the nature of top lane. Has built up a 25 CS advantage though, so he's significantly now getting ahead of Wonderwear. That first gank just kind of swayed the top lane in his favor. Nisbet and Kobe again goes for the headbutt pulverize combo, and the double tap in from Lucian is enough to at least send him packing to his turret. But just getting these small advantages. Dan trying to get something done in the top lane. Has already been pre-warded though, but they will still go for this dive. Wonderwear stuck around. Has the ultimate top himself. Just flash. Comes into the twisted advance onto Beansu. Does not get enough lockdown, but Sen cuts it here. Ready for this 1-on-2 with them both weekend. Oh, with that old tunnel. Using that to get back to safety. And another one as well to try and get him back to the turret, and will indeed do so. Senkux cannot fit through that tunnel and follow him, and does not get either of those kills.
Finally something on the board though for Mouse. They finally pick up a kill, and that is what Mouse needed to do. Is they needed to get themselves rolling in the lane that was going okay for them in this. Now 1-0 has the CS lead. Yes, Wonderwear and Beansu still have their teleports available, but that doesn't really affect too much right now. No dragon pressure from either team yet this early on in the game. One thing I want to go back to is that bottom lane trade. I spoke about how when you're playing the Lucian Sivir lane, how Sivir, if you're not under pressure to spell shield anything, you can spell shield the piercing light. That time she was under pressure, so took the damage from piercing light, but then didn't spell shield any of the crowd control that followed it. And it's curious to me seeing that Cedrian is just not willing to use spell shield on anything in his lane, because every time they take trades like that, it is costing the Sivir again and again.
Yeah, and that will continue to be the problem. Maybe just like mistiming as well, because you want to try and spell shield the knockup, because the headbutt comes in, then he knocks you up anyway, but still. Does need to be doing that. Sayu in the mid lane just pick up his blue buff and will just try his best to carry on farming. This is a lane that has firmly gone now into the control of Senkuk, so he pretty much controls this. And Sayu is not that with does not have that much mana, is what I was trying to say. We'll be walking to this jungle here. Did see him take away that Wraith camp. Dan, meanwhile, taking away the pink ward in the top side. Vision control in general has been pretty much as expected from Team Dignitas, getting those advantages, putting down the wards where they belong, but neither team has really aggressed past the river, as the game is still pretty equal. Mal's actually slightly ahead in this game by 300 gold, so in terms of how this entire game has gone, the wards are just kind of sitting down river.
Yeah, a lot of that lead just comes from the top lane farm right now, as every other lane has started to somewhat stabilize a little bit. Still a little bit of a lead in Senkuk's favor in the mid lane, but nowhere near the difference between Beansu and Wonderwear. But they have to kind of convert this lead that Beansu has into a lead elsewhere on the map, whether it's the first dragon fight or whether they can get Beansu out of the lane before Wonderwear can react. But speaking of first dragon fights, looks like Team Dignitas are looking for the dragon. They've actually forced Victor back. Well, actually, there's no forced about it. Victor just backed.
Yeah, he was just low on mana, farmed a wave, and was like, I'm going back now. And then Team Dignitas just turned that into a dragon. That was simply just because Sayu wanted to go back. And he just picked up the components of what looks to be an Abyssal Scepter, so we can start trading with Senkux. There's a lot of magic damage on the side of Team Dignitas EU, so it does make sense. But yeah, it was getting to the game where it was getting to the point where it was almost like a game of chicken, because Sayu hadn't gone back in such a long time. It's like, well, I have to go back eventually, and it hasn't been a dragon contest, and we don't want to go for it. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's just very weird back timing when you look at it. The fact he was full health means you can at least pressure that you're there. I mean, okay, yeah, if you're low mana, you can't really shove the wave out, but just the fact that mid lane is there and you haven't seen jungle is enough normally, especially when you consider just how many topside wards there are for Team Dignitas. But back goes Sayo.
The flash, the slam, the knockback, and the dead Sayo.
Oh,
again and again. That time I think he was just trying to ward.
Yeah, I mean,
he didn't have a ward. So.
I mean, Team Dignitas are just working around Senkux and Obvious so well. This time, Senkux actually gets the kill, so he can escalate his build even faster here. But knock-up hits.
I've seen this one before as well. Cedrian has to flash away even from that aggression just with the headbutt pulverize combo. Mid lane will go down to Senkux with that damage from W, from the Uprise, places down a Sun Disc, and all of a sudden this game has started to accelerate. Advances being taken a little bit faster from Team Dignitas, and bottom turret should be going down. The ward vision and the ward coverage is now aggressing into the jungle of Mouse. Team Dignitas just flipped a switch with that Dragon.
Yeah, from what looked to be fairly even lanes in at least the bottom lane, now Team Dignitas have just started to use their map pressure a lot better. They managed to catch out Victor in the mid lane, then trade it for a mid lane turret as well, and a bottom lane turret. They've just completely stamped their authority on this game, and now Sayu's going to push his way up through his own side of mid lane and get himself back out onto the map.
Well, Sayu back in the mid lane will continue to just try and pick up the scraps of farm that he can. Has not been able to finish his Abyssal just yet, but in the jungle, Dan actually went for the Warrior enchant and also the Sightstone, so trying to secure that early vision or at least keep it up and go for that early aggression and try and just do as much damage as he can. We know he likes his carry junglers, but in terms of how the team's going to scale, now essentially they have one big tank for the foreseeable future. I
like this play out of Team Dignitas. You know there's only one outer tower remaining, and there's only really one person defending it before Dan can get himself up there, but just put as many people as you can. Wonderware's actually teleporting down into the bottom lane behind Cedra in a mountain.
This will be a 2 versus 2. Tries to slam them against the wall with the Emperor's Divide. Mountain and Cedra just getting eaten alive, but so is Senkook. Mountain doesn't have enough damage to take down the Emperor. Does not look to be the case as he gets the shield from the shifting sands and will be able to take them both out and clear up the minions as well. Great initiate from Wonderware.
And not only that, great map control out of Team Dignitas. They'd already showed Alistar in the top side. So what this does is call Mouse's bluff. You either teleport down with Na and Rek'Sai using your ultimates to make sure you have the numbers advantage on the bottom side and you give top turret, or you let your duo lane fall. And that's exactly what happened. And now Team Dignitas can continue to pressure the top lane and look to get that turret. And Obvious should be able to just about defend mid if Victor looks to push it forward again.
Well, top lane has completely inverted. Now we have Kobe and Nisbet in the top lane here. Dan is sitting in the brush, as we said before. He does have that Warrior enchant, so he will do a lot of damage in a short space of time if he can get that knock-up. But that requires Kobe or Nisbet to actually get near the bush that he's currently in. And it does not look like they're going to be doing so in the near future. I have to assume he got the blue buff yet.
That would be embarrassing.
Yeah.
That would be awkward. But Beansu was trying to manage his rage bar there, but had to clear the wave. Otherwise, it was in a very awkward spot where the Team Dignitas lineup could have looked to have dragged Beansu further forward. But Dan has been up here for a very long time. He's been here for probably about a minute to a minute and a half now. He was up there before that bottom lane fight even happened. So his actual impact on the map for the last 2 minutes has been very small.
Yeah, quite literally just went AFK in top lane. Was only getting experience, so wasn't even getting any gold from his jungle. But he is actually still ahead of Obvious in terms of both farm and levels. That was mainly from the creeps he was leeching from Beansu. In the bot side of the map now, the entire team of Mouse, apart from Beansu, is just congregated, just clearing out the jungle more than anything. There's nothing really to fight over until the Dragon in 1 minute, but Mouse have not really secured much vision around the area for Dragon, even if they wanted to contest.
Yeah, I mean, Mouse haven't really secured too much vision in general. I mean, they have 2 pinks down, one defensively, one kind of in no man's land in the river, and then a ward in their own jungle, whereas Team Dignitas have this full line all the way through the top jungle. It is fairly defensive, but it's not too much of a problem. All it is doing is making sure that nobody can come in behind Senkook while he's pushing up like this. He's got his tower down as well. Nobody's ever going to dive through that as long as Obvious is around, and quite frankly, it just zones the entire area from mid through to the top of the blue side jungle in favor of Team Dignitas, and they should be able to pick up a Dragon for it. They will trade a turret though, so a little bit of gold going to the side of Mouse, but this will be the second Dragon for Team Dignitas.
Yeah. Senkook gets a nice little bit of damage onto the mid turret, has finished his death cap as well at 21 minutes, almost 22 minutes into the game, has literally only really been farming this game apart from picking up those kills with Obvious, so he's got a lot of gold going over towards him so far in this game. This will be the Dragon going over to Team Dignitas, essentially uncontested from Mouse. Do not want to go anywhere near that or touch that with a barge pole. And there is the second Dragon of the game going down. Senkook has located a Dan, and there's the Emperor's Divide as well. Oh, locks him in place with the Twisted Advance. Will be flashing over the wall. Can he get near him? Comes up with the Burrow. And Beansu as well will have to hop over the wall. He teleported into that fight, expecting something to happen. Dan, however, did get away.
Yeah, I'm not too sure what the teleport really achieved there for Beansu. Maybe it just made Team Dignitas think twice, but they had Dan basically dead to rights as it was. He managed to get himself out over the wall, and you saw Baron with his teeny little feet try and stomp on Rek'Sai as he went past. That was... it was just something I noticed. There was like, Baron has these little like claws that kind of like just...
I don't know if
try
they
and
count
stomp
as feet,
a little bit. They looked like feet, but at this point, honestly, I think Team Dignitas... Yeah, exactly. That was exactly what it was. Team Dignitas still trying to pressure this top tower. They've been slowed down when it comes to their actual objective gain, but they're trying to accelerate it pretty quickly with Senkux and Nisbeth coming up through the top side. Flash forward.
Well, flashes away from the Unburrow there, but Nisbeth's not going to be so lucky. However, Beansu completely whiffs his ultimate as Nisbeth just stands there. Now the follow-up with the Azir damage with the soldiers, and the rest of the team is closing in from around the side. Wonderwear was there to meet him, and Beansu is still just being juggled around by all the CC.
He gets out.
Oh, he uses Sayo to jump away from them with the hop for the long range. Twisted Advance will get him and still pick up the kill. It's always Victor just dying in these fights. He's the only one who's going to be falling from Mouse. And Team Dignitas do pick up that kill. Meanwhile, Sejong was split pushing in the bot lane, so they do pick up a tower for it. But I feel like this middle turret is not going to last too long for Mouse.
Yeah, they're probably going to lose at least top tower here in favor of Team Dignitas. And I mean, trading an inner for an outer is going to be good for Mouse. Just overall, they will be happy with that trade. The problem is they did, however, lose Victor again. And Mouse, they may very well be down in the fan vote, but they are still holding in here. Team Dignitas with a strong lead when it comes to their support.
Yeah, like pretty much all of the events that have happened in this game have always looked like Team Dignitas. They've killed people, they're doing well, they're beating everyone up. But then when you actually look at the scoreboard, yeah, they're 7-1, but they have a 1,000 gold advantage at 24 minutes, which is minimal. They have equal towers. Yes, they have the 2 dragons, and that's pretty much the main thing here.
Yeah.
But in terms of gold, and in terms of in terms of fighting capacity, Mao's aren't that far behind.
Well, this is when we were talking about Mao's actually having a fair amount of strengths. Once you can get Sivir out on the map, once you get a couple of items under Victor, just so he has some damage to him, Mouse should be able to take a couple of fights here and there. The problem is they gave the 2 dragons away to Dignitas. Dignitas have a lead in general as it is, and Senkux is very strong. You look at that mid lane CS difference as well as the gold he's got from kills and assists. That is going to be the biggest problem for Mouse to overcome, is actually somehow getting over this Azir, and I don't know how they're going to do it with this lineup. We talked about how Victor is never going to be able to get there to blow Azir up. Sivir isn't going to really be able to do too much because Azir is too far away, and Nara and Rek'Sai, in theory, with this front line, should never get close. Yeah,
and well, that's the big problem with scaling compositions, right? Like, you can just not get through that beefy front line, then you have the back lines doing a bunch of damage, and now we get to the sieging situation where Mouse, they don't really have a front line to get in there. Like, they have a situational front line as well, because Na has to have his Narbar to be a tank. Right now, he's just kind of a small Yordle running around. Dan is not built like a tank, and as a result, Team Dignitas just running through the jungle, taking whatever they want from Mouse.
And we'll get that blue buff. Mouse now still dealing with the Azir turret themselves. Pretty far down when it comes to actual items completed. You can look all the way down the list, and every lane from Team Dignitas has 2 completed items, and their counterpart is maybe just about breaking 1.5, and that means that when Dig manage to get themselves back, use the gold they're sat on, that gap is only going to get wider and wider.
It will indeed. Copy picking up the red buff there, just picking up all the advantages they can on their side of the map. Dragon in 1 minute 30 will be the next objective to fight over. Mouse really need to start contesting these, as Team Dignitas can use that as a way to close out this game if they just continue to get one after another.
So it seems very much so that the plan for Team Dignitas EU is very much so the same as Spring. Senkux is going to get ahead, or at least go even in his lane, and you know you can rely on him to do well. So as long as the rest of the map goes even, you should be fine. And now you've got a jungler that's going to pressure a lot more consistently early and pick up kills and assists early, like Obvious did in this game. it's a much safer a platform for Senkux to work from than the previous lineup. This time around, he can just rely on jungler having the right impact and the bot lane drawing even as well, and that's exactly what's happened this game.
Yeah, the funny thing was, like, early on to the split, or rather last split, Wonderwear was great. It was actually towards the end of the split where they faced the same difficulties game after game after game. Wonderwear only then just kind of started looking demoralized and didn't really play to his best. But right now we're just, well, we did see him play Maokai. Like, there's not a lot that's going to happen in top lane. But the point is, Wonderwear, he's doing what he needs to do in this game.
Yeah, he is, exactly. And Team Dignitas are as well. We talked about it. Red side, they wanted to kind of pick mid. Or at least give Senkux something strong, and it's worked out impeccably well. And Mouser playing with fire right now is standing close to those sand soldiers is going to be detrimental to your health if you value your life, that is. But look, Maokai in the base has teleport. If this even kicks off, Mouse have, there is a ward behind them in the mid lane and a Righteous Glory on Maokai, so he can come around the side and box Mouse completely. And if they step forward, there's actually this ward in the river as well, right on top of them that they won't be able to split from. They have sweepers available. They need to get rid of these wards before they take any more steps forward.
Well, there's a Nara on the backside trying to get the engage on, but Team Dignitas just turn around. That's a 4-man ultimate, though, in from Beansu. Is it going to be enough to win the fight for them, though? Dan will pick up the first target, along with Mounted onto Obvious, but the aggressive Azir right into the back lines. Azir would have to back away here. Meanwhile, Mounted is getting gnarled on by the rest of the team. Beansu is getting killed by these soldiers, and they'll pick up another one as they chase after, as a Death Ray coming across will stop Cobby in his tracks. Wonderware is trying to kill a couple more escaping members, pick off some stragglers, but from what looked like a good engage by Beansu, completely turned around by Team Dignitas.
Yeah, completely turned around, and Maokai had even walked his way there into the back of the fight and kind of met Beansu head on. You saw how much damage Senkux had in that fight as well, as he just completely obliterated so many people from Mouse, and Mouse were lucky to get away with quite so many people with their lives. But I want to take a look. Beansu comes in from the backside, but look, there already is Wonderware in this fight. Great Gnar ultimate, but the problem is Cedrian right here is zoned so far back from both Cobby and Senkux that it's impossible for them to damage the carries. It only becomes possible once Cobby flashes over the wall, looks to try and take down Sayu, and then puts himself in harm's way. But quite frankly, Team Dignitas is so far ahead right now that they knew they could take this fight like this.
First time I saw the fight, I was like, the path that the Twisted Advance took, I was like, that's Azir. And it was not an Azir, it was a tree with the Twisted Advance. So, yeah, did manage to follow Mouse all the way back as they were retreating. And after the dust has settled, they did pick up all of those kills, plus the Dragon. Now they're setting up for Baron as well. Everything is just flowing over to the way of Team Dignitas, and we haven't really seen too many proactive moves from Mouse. Like, the biggest proactive move they've made this game was trying to set up that vision before and just getting hit by Sand Soldiers. So now they're still pushing out of their base, they're still trying to contest this Baron, but that's what they have to do. We haven't seen them really go for a proactive play and have it work out.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is they haven't really been able to at any point in this game.
That's also true.
Even from kind of once the first parts of the laning phase had gone, there wasn't too much they could do, and this is quite a nice little play out of the Team Dignitas lineup. They basically showed in front of the Baron pit, showed on a couple of wards, swept them out, and looked to be backing away, but Obvious and Senkux, they got the range on this to be doing this Baron over the back wall, and that is a 2-man Baron at 31 minutes into the game. That just shows you just how much damage Senkux has. Now that he's got a Void Staff and another needlessly large rod, I mean, what can stop him in this game?
Pretty much nothing that Mouse have. They just need a different set of champions really to deal with this Azir. There is just nothing to get on top of him. Yes, he took a lot of damage in the last team fight, but they just didn't have enough to finish him off. And
the lead for this game actually is very deceptive when you look at just the gold lead as an isolated stat, because you would be forgiven to think that Mouse weren't too far out of this game with just a couple of 1,000 gold in it. 3 dragons, though, and the amount of just damage in general that Team Dignitas has right now is so much more valuable to them than the gold that they have in their inventory right now. A lot of what MOUs have been able to keep up with is the fact that Sivir has been split pushing, and there's a lot of a farm difference on Gnar and Maokai, but quite frankly, this game, the later this game goes, the less farm Maokai is going to start to get anyway. So it just kind of passively looks better for MOUs than it actually is.
Well, it also harkens back to the point that Team Dignitas are just going to scale better. And we are now 32 minutes into the game, and the gold has accelerated to the point where we're pretty much in that late game place where Azir is doing a lot of damage, and MOUs don't have a lot of ways to deal with it. And that's essentially what it's come down to here, is now the bottom lane is being sieged as well. Baron has gone over to the team of Team Dignitas. But MOUs do have a fair amount of wave clear. Mountain did just take a lot of damage though. And so did Binsu.
Man, that's to a tank. That's to a Warmog's armor and extra health coming from Ranyans, but he doesn't actually have all that much magic resist. Just a Spectre's Cowl and a Hex Drinker right now on Binsu. There's not too much that can stand in front of this Team Dignitas lineup, and Victor can't clear the waves either because these are Baroned up waves. MOUs are going to try and engage.
Well, they have to at this point. The big ultimate comes in for the disengage from Obvious, and Wonderware jumps all the way into the back line, but the rest of the team doesn't really want to go for this just yet. He'll sort of back off, poke a little bit. Cutting comes through, does manage to tag down and Binsu as they back off to their turret. But that tower has already taken a huge beating, and that Sivir ultimate is not coming off cooldown, and MOUs don't have another way to come back into this. And that is a Rek'Sai going back to the front lines.
Yeah, back to the front lines, but it's going to end up going straight back to base because this is Team Dignitas pushing up onto the platform to try and get this inhibitor.
And just going for another team fight as well. This time it's going to be Team Dignitas going for the initiate. Mountain dropping low. The ultimate comes out from Senkox. Actually doesn't get the Azir sec onto anyone. Doesn't hit anyone at all. But it's just enough to zone them away. Allow them to go onto this inhib. Binsu is trying his best just to kill the Azir. But turned around, nukes him down. And that was almost Team Dignitas deciding to back off and fight another day. But MOUs, they overextend just a little too far. Try to kill the Azir. And that will just spell the end of the game for them. Team Dignitas EU, 34 minutes into this game, will be closing it out against Mousesports in this first game of this best of 3. What a conclusion.
What a convincing game as well. I think it's the first thing you can take from that. Man, only dropping 2 kills overall, and there was the biggest thing I want to take from this first game is just how much more a team that Team Dignitas EU look than the previous iteration of the lineup. This time they looked all on the same page. Those plays, even in the mid lane, just the 3 Shurima shuffles into Gragas ultimate, back to back to back. I'm glad to see that Team Dignitas have made that kind of improvement, but that is game 1 of a best of 3. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, because MOUs, if we see that now from them in game 2, we could very much so have a series still on our hands.
Yeah, for sure. In that game, I didn't really ever feel that MOUs really showed signs of life. If they get their foothold into this next game, I think we could see something very different from what we saw just then.
Yeah. Very much so anticipate this next game. But I think one thing I'm really looking forward to for the next game is whether Senkox's Azir is going to be available or not. Because I kind of have a feeling that he's not when you look at his performance from that game. 4-0-5.
Not bad.
Not bad. I mean, it's not like a 10-0 stat line, but 4-0-5 in a fairly short game actually is a very, very impressive stat line.
Yeah, I mean, he farmed perfectly, did everything that he really needed to, and as you said, his team is now a platform to allow Senkox to do everything that he needs to in the game and really just use his advantages. Because he always used to get advantages, they could never do anything with them. Now with this new team, they can. Yeah,
they can, but I think we're gonna see how they did it actually, because we're gonna take another look back at part of that game. And I was gonna say, I hope it is one of the Shurima shuffles into the middle lane. This is just perfect balancing of crowd control timings. Is you didn't see Gragas use the ultimate too early. It was just as Victor was trying to escape, but just mechanically outplayed.
A true display of skill. Nice. Yeah. Fantastic. But yeah, we'll see if they can keep up that performance and the mechanics as we get into the next game. But yeah, just very impressive from Team Dignitas. Mouse, want to see them do a little more in the early game. It's funny because they itemized towards the early game. We saw the Hex Drinker, we saw the Warrior Enchant, and then they tried to go make aggressive plays, and nothing really happened.
And they have an early game jungler in Dan as well.
Exactly. Like their playstyle, their build, their champions, everything looks for early game, and then it never really happened.
They took weird trades in the bottom lane where there was a lot of damage coming from the Team Dignitas lineup, but we're going to have to see whether that happens again.
Yeah, so that's game 1 in the books. This series continues right after this.